Check, check, check. We just got done on a little shoot and just heading home now to look at the footage that we captured. Alex was helping me out just to get some footage to use my LUTs and to show you what that looks like. So hopefully you got some value from that, and yeah, we'll be chucking my LUTs on that, show you a little bit about how that looks. And yeah, it's a beautiful night tonight. We were hoping the sky would pop a little bit, the colour, but it didn't really do anything, but still all looks really good. So yeah, stoked, and hopefully I can show you guys how I colour grade with the LUT pack that I've created and developed. It's a really specific way that I use the LUTs in my workflow, and I'll have like the base LUTs to use over the footage and then also creative LUTs that I use as well. So hopefully I'll show you that now as well once I get back to the computer and get back home. Yeah, but thanks for following along. Hope you enjoyed that little cinematic sequence, and we'll see you in a bit. Seriously, cannot wait. I cannot wait to show you this footage. Just going to dump these cards and then we'll get straight into it. Alright, well here we are at the edit suite, and I've already cut this intro piece that you would have just seen. So basically now I'm ready to show you how these LUTs work and take you through my workflow. So if we just start by having a look at one of these clips, let's say this walking clip here that I spent a little bit longer on in the edit just to close out the edit. And let's just go into the color palette here in DaVinci Resolve, and I will show you what I've got here. So the first is just the first node, and there's no LUT on that node, nothing on there at all. This would be a node where you adjust exposure and everything like that, but we kind of had the settings dialed in that Alex was shooting in, so we didn't need to adjust this at all. And into this second LUT I came in and I put on my LUT, which was the sun LUT. So that's all I did for that. If I toggle that off, you can see there that basically that was with the sun LUT. That's with sun LUT just on its own. So it takes the footage from the log format into the Rec 709 format. So that's the log, that's the Rec 709. So all I did was I brought the C-Log footage in, and it was like this, and I applied my LUT and also applied a small curve adjustment as well, and that's it. That basically gets me right in the ballpark of where I want to be with this image. So straight off the bat, that gives me that image. Let's go to another one, this one here. This is the CINE. All this was shot in 120 frames per second too, in 4K. So back to this shot, and I'll show you again. I'll take off the little bit of fade, which is just pulling up the contrast, pulling up the shadows a little bit. So I'll turn that one off. And so this is the log, and this is the grade with my LUT. This is the sun LUT again. I'll show you that same one. If you just go down to here, that's my log 1 CINE LUT sun. And then this is just a little curves adjustment. I'll show you what that is what I call my cinema curves adjustment. All it is literally just pulling up that highlight there at the bottom. So now what I'll show you is this is my sun LUT that I've built out, you know, for this particular thing, but I call this cinema and sun. So the way I would actually do this now is let me reset the nodes here and take you through the whole process here. So the way I would normally generally work with this footage is I would bring in the Canon log and I would set up 3 nodes like this. My first node, I would rename that and call this exposure, and I might adjust the exposure and some other little things there if I needed to, but here we're sort of shooting in the right area and my skin tones are kind of in that 20 to 30% of IRE, so they're not too bad. Maybe bring it up a little bit for this, but I like the look of it, how it is, you know, straight out of the bag, so I'll leave it as is. And then what I want to do on this one, I want to put in my base LUT. So I have these transform LUTs that are for sale on my website, and this is the base, the crush, the cinema. I've now called it cinema, it's not fade anymore, and the bloom. So I would choose this as my cinema LUT. So then I would go into the, and this would be my base, so my base LUT. And then in this one, this is where I would put my creative LUT. So in this case, I'm going to go and put my creative sun LUT on there. Now, the opacity of this sun LUT is too high because this is actually a LUT that's created to go directly onto the log footage. So what I would do is I would come into the key input here, output, and the key output gain. I'm just going to reduce that key output gain for that LUT. So it's going to give me maybe about 50% on that. So then that's kind of my final look with that LUT. Yeah, final look with that LUT, that combination of those 2 LUTs. So that's pretty much all I need to do to get this footage to where I want it to be, and that is a pretty simple process. You know, overall, there's really not a lot of work involved in that, and because of the increase in dynamic range that you get out of the C-Log footage, there's no reason why you would shoot in a standard profile and you wouldn't shoot in a C-Log profile. So let's take a look at another clip, this clip here. So again, I've got my sun LUT on this one, but let's go and create a different, I want to create a different vibe for this shot. So I want to create something like a bloom, let's say, for this. So I'm going to remove the little bit of cinema that I've got on there, the edge I've got on it, and I'm going to make this a different look. So let's go with a bloom. Now a bloom is going to give more blue to the shadows, and it's going to also push the saturation a little bit. So that was just the bloom LUT there. So that's just the bloom LUT straight on the footage with nothing else. Now, even to the point where that's not even sharpened, that footage. So I could even add another node just to show you the power of how powerful this camera is. And I could just add a sharpening effect, sharpen that footage down to somewhere like that. You know, sharpen it, and it looks very good, you know. And so that's just that one LUT of mine called the bloom LUT. That's just the base LUT too. There's no creative really involved in that LUT. Let's look at the crush LUT. So the crush LUT just takes the highlights and pulls them down a bit. And maybe for the crush, you know, that's like a little bit of a grayscale on it. So I would maybe grab the first node here, and I would boost probably a little bit in the, I could probably just go the temperature, just add a little bit of temperature in there just to, you know, boost up that skin. So that's the base grade of the footage, you know. Maybe there's also some tint issues there. Yeah, just go a little bit more, add a little more tint. So, you know, that's kind of like showing you, you know, what the versatility of this footage is. So that's without the tint. So that's the original footage, and that's just that little bit of a tint change and the base LUT. So it takes from that C-Log into the Rec 709, and then from there you can work on that creatively. So, you know, from there you can add that little bit of cinema to it. And this is how I've developed these LUTs as well. I worked with the image in this way, not using the LUTs to start with, just building in the saturation and the contrast and the things that I wanted into the C-Log footage, and then from there tweaking it to taste, and then finally I came up with the LUTs that I was really happy with. So that sort of, you know, gets you into that ballpark of where you want that footage to be. So then we go to the crushed LUT. Let's go to the cinema LUT, which it's called a fade here, but I've actually called this LUT now a cinema LUT. So that there is just the raw footage with the cinema LUT into like a Rec 709, you know, footage without any sharpening. So then I could sharpen that. And, you know, out of the box, that LUT, basically, I could use that LUT now to deliver this footage. This is like a good looking skin tone that's not destructive of the footage. A lot of LUTs will destroy, you know, skin tones, and you really have to work on them. And a lot of LUTs you have to remove opacity, like I showed you with the key output. You've got to remove a lot of that on a lot of LUTs because they're too much. They're trying to do too much to the footage. But with my LUTs, they're really not doing too much to the footage. You can have your gain all the way up at 1, and if you can hear stuff happening in the hallway, that's the kids running around. But basically here you can have this footage with the LUT in full because it doesn't do anything else. And then I would say that, you know, another node I would add there, I'll just reset that node there. Let's put the sharpening on as well. Sorry, let's put that back on. So here then basically what I would do is I would then create my look. So if I'm just working with my base LUTs, I'll apply the cinema look to it, which is this LUT here out of the LUT pack. You know, Michael Drowley fade, which I've now called cinema. So that's the cinema LUT. And this one here, I would then just work on some other things like, okay, let's say I want this to have a little bit more pop in the saturation. So I can basically go and grab a saturation curve and apply more saturation, right? So I can make it bloom in the skin tones, or I can sort of just in the mid-tones bring up the saturation, or in the shadows kind of thing. So, you know, I can then work with the footage how I want in post. So, you know, then I can sort of get that little bit more extra saturation going in the footage. That's going to bloom in the skin a little bit too hot for me, so that's where I bring that down. And that's what I found the Canon LUTs did a lot of as well. They would, you know, bloom up the skin and make it a little bit too oversaturated. So that's why I developed the LUTs that I have. And so, yeah, let's just look at one more shot that I've got here. And let's look at this shot, which is kind of a shot that's a little bit tougher for the camera sensor because it's a little bit darker. But I'll just show you as I come out of the bushes here, what this has created. And this is literally just my LUT on there, nothing else on that footage. And it is the sun LUT. So if I turn that LUT off, that was the log footage. And you look where that is shot to, it's quite low down. In the histogram, skin tone is around about 25% of IRE. So quite low really. But just turning on that LUT brings it up to a very well exposed kind of moody nighttime image. So yeah, well, hopefully you got something out of this video, you guys. And if you do want to get hold of my LUTs, you can find them in the link below, and I'll also put them up in the top of this video for you to click and check them out. They do help you. I know they've helped my workflow immensely, and so I think they're going to speed up the process for you. But the whole idea of this little shoot was that I was coming out of lockdown and we can now meet with 2 people in a park. So we can legally do that now, and I just really felt that was a good time to get out with my friend Alex and to shoot some stuff. And yeah, I really feel like a lot of us maybe feel like we've stopped creating, or the creative flow isn't there anymore, but all it is just a matter of getting out there and giving it a go and getting your camera in your hand and shooting some footage. And hopefully this encourages you to do that.